Back in November of 2021, I thought a long drive would clear my head. My wife Emily and I had been married 7 years, and things between us were tense. Not bad exactly, just worn thin. We lived outside Denver, both working long hours and talking more about bills than dreams. Her sister had invited us down to Albuquerque for Thanksgiving, and Emily insisted we drive instead of fly. "We need the time together," she said, tossing a cooler in the back of my aging Subaru Outback. We left late afternoon on a Wednesday, the sky already getting that winter gray. Emily had her lists: snacks, gas stops, a loose schedule that had us pulling into her sister's driveway before sunrise. She wore my old college hoodie and kept brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, the way she always did when she was anxious but pretending not to be. I drove, hands at 10 and 2, pretending I was fine, pretending the hollow feeling in my chest was just work stress. Around Pueblo, she switched the music to some true crime podcast about people disappearing on highways. I rolled my eyes and told her she was trying to freak me out on purpose. She laughed, said, "Relax, Matt. It's just a story." But the way the narrator's voice droned on about late-night roads and strangers made the empty stretch ahead of us feel even longer, like we were slowly driving off the edge of the world. By the time darkness swallowed the plains, we were alone with the road, the engine, and the things we did not want to say out loud. We crossed into New Mexico close to 10 p.m. Emily had dozed off, her head against the window, breath fogging the glass, the glow from the dash painting her face in soft blue. I turned the podcast off and let some old country station fill the silence. The Subaru rattled over cracks in the pavement, the heater struggling against the November cold. There is a part of I-25 between Raton and Las Vegas that feels like nothing. No towns, no traffic, just black fields, and the occasional ranch light way off in the distance. Out there, the world shrinks to your headlights and whatever's hiding behind them. That is where I first saw the headlights in my rearview mirror, coming up way too fast. A dark pickup rode my bumper, then pulled to my left, pacing me. The driver leaned on his horn, flashing his high beams, waving one arm like he was trying to flag me down. I felt my stomach knot. Emily jerked awake beside me, disoriented. The man lowered his passenger window as we rolled ours down halfway. The wind knifed through the crack, carrying his voice in broken pieces. "Your back tire," he shouted, chopping at the air with his hand. "Sparks, you're gonna lose the wheel." His truck eased in front of us and drifted onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. I hesitated. It was late, it was empty. But logic won. If a tire really blew out at 75 miles per hour, we could flip. I heard myself tell Emily, "I'll just check fast. Keep the doors locked." She stared straight ahead, jaw tight, and nodded. I pulled onto the shoulder behind him, our headlights washing over the back of his mud-caked truck. That one choice still keeps me up at night. He was tall, maybe 6'3", wearing a faded denim jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. As he walked toward me between the trucks, I noticed how calm his stride was, like he had done this 100 times. His face up close was ordinary. Sun-lined skin, stubble, pale eyes, the kind of guy you would not remember 10 minutes after meeting. He smelled faintly of gasoline and cigarettes. "Left rear," he said, pointing. "Saw sparks a few miles back. Figured you'd want to know." His tone was polite, almost apologetic. It disarmed me more than anger would have. I crouched by the tire, phone flashlight sweeping over the rubber. Tread looked fine. No wire, no dragging metal, nothing. Just a normal wheel in the freezing dark. A little alarm bell started ringing in the back of my mind. I turned to tell him everything looked okay. He had moved closer. Too close. 3 feet away, maybe less. His face now blank. All friendliness gone. It was like someone had shut a light off behind his eyes. "You sure?" he asked quietly. His voice sounded different, flatter. "Yeah," I said, backing toward the Subaru. "I think we're good. Appreciate you stopping." I saw Emily's silhouette through the windshield. Even at that distance, I could tell she was watching him, not me. Her hands were clenched on her lap, shoulders rigid. I turned away for half a second, enough to break eye contact. That's when his hand clamped onto my shoulder, fingers digging in hard. He said, "You should have checked better," in this low, almost amused tone. Something cold pressed against my throat. The glint of a knife blade caught my own headlights. And for the first time in my life, I was sure I was about to die on the side of a road in the middle of nowhere. I flinched backward, my boot slipping on the loose gravel. That stumble saved my life. The blade sliced in front of my neck instead of through it. I went down hard, the air blasting out of my lungs. Emily screamed my name, muffled by glass and engine noise. He stepped over me like I was trash in the road and went straight for the driver's side door. His movements were slow, controlled, like this was not panic for him. This was routine. That was almost worse than if he had come in wild. "Emily, out the other side! Run!" I croaked, my voice shredded. I heard her fumbling with something. Seatbelt, lock, her phone, I don't know. His fist slammed into the driver's window with a sickening thud. The glass shook but held. Adrenaline took over. I lunged at his legs, wrapping my arms around his waist and driving forward with everything I had. We crashed onto the pavement, the knife skidding under the Subaru. For a split second, I thought I had him. He rolled us with terrifying strength, pinning me with his knee on my chest. His hands wrapped around my throat, thumbs pressing so hard I saw stars. His face hovered inches above mine, totally expressionless. No anger, no joy. Just empty. The world tunneled. Sound shrank to a low roar. The last clear thing I saw was the passenger door flying open and Emily bolting into the darkness, barefoot sprinting up the shoulder. His head snapped toward her, like he had heard a signal. Then the pressure vanished as he leapt off me and ran after her. I lay there choking, gasping, my vision slowly coming back. The highway around me was dead silent. The only sound was the wind scraping across the asphalt. When I finally forced myself to my feet, both trucks were sitting there, idling, like nothing had happened. But Emily and the man were gone, swallowed by the dark. I staggered up the highway, calling Emily's name until my throat burned raw. My voice echoed off nothing. No cars, no houses, just open land and that endless black. About 100 yards up, I found her phone face down on the shoulder, screen cracked, still recording a half-finished 911 call. Further on, one of her sneakers lay on its side in the lane, white laces glowing in the headlights when I turned back. I do not know how long I walked before I saw her. She was just off the pavement, in the scrub and gravel, on her back, eyes open to the sky. For a second, my brain refused to accept what I was seeing. My mind tried to turn it into a prank, a mistake, anything, but what it was. There was so much blood, but the strangest thing was the quiet. No struggling, no gasping, no last words, just stillness. The cut across her throat was too clean to be an accident, too terrible to describe. I dropped down beside her, grabbed her hand, and waited for any sign of life that never came. The stars above us felt wrong, like they were witnessing something they shouldn't. Eventually, headlights appeared far down the road. A semi pulled over when the driver saw our abandoned car and my hazard lights strobing in the dark. He wrapped his jacket around my shoulders, his voice distant as he called 911. Then there were cops, paramedics, questions I barely heard. They found the man weeks later, hours away, living under another name. He had hurt other people. He had done this before. The trial, the sentencing, all of that feels like paperwork compared to the moment I had to point at him in court and say, "That's him." The man who turned a routine drive into a nightmare I still cannot wake up from. 2 years have crawled by. I moved states, sold the Subaru, started sleeping with a light on like a child. I cannot drive alone at night without my chest tightening. People online tell me I should feel lucky to be alive. Some days, that feels like a cruel joke. I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm sharing it because I want someone out there to survive a choice I didn't know was deadly. If you are ever on an empty road and someone tries to flag you down, do not stop. Call 911. Drive to a lit gas station or a town and get help from there. It is not your job to be a hero on the side of a highway in the dark. The road does not care if you are kind, if you mean well, if you are just trying to help. Some people out there are counting on that. Trust your instincts more than politeness. Your life, and the lives of the people you love, are worth more than a stranger's story on a lonely road. I grew up in a forgotten corner of northern Idaho, the kind of town where the biggest excitement was when the grocery store got a new brand of cereal. My parents ran a tiny mechanic shop off the highway, and my life was just school, helping in the garage, and watching other people drive away toward something better. By the time I turned 22, I was desperate for any reason to leave. So when a logistics startup in Portland emailed me back about an entry-level operations job, I treated it like a golden ticket. The interview was in person only, no Zoom, no phone screen. "We want to see how you handle the real world," the recruiter said over email. I didn't have much money, but I had a car, an old Corolla I'd nursed through 3 winters. My best friend Ethan joked, "Dude, you drive that thing to Portland, it might not come back." I laughed, but I knew he was half right. Still, I said yes to the interview. I was tired of waiting for life to come to me. I took a Friday off from the shop, gathered every spare dollar I could find, packed a duffel bag with one decent shirt and my printed resume, and told my parents I'd be back Sunday. My mom hugged me a little too long and said, "Don't drive tired. If you get sleepy, just pull over and rest. Jobs can wait. Lives can't." I promised her I would. I meant it when I said it. My route took me southwest across Washington and then down into Oregon. I left before dawn, thinking I'd beat the traffic and make the drive in one push. By the time I got past the city lights and into the emptier stretches, the sky had that bleached gray look like it couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or just hang there. After about 8 hours on the road, my eyelids felt like sandpaper. I slammed a gas station coffee and kept going, radio turned up, window cracked, doing all the classic stay-awake tricks I'd heard about. None of them worked. Around 11 p.m., I was somewhere east of the Dalles, on a long, almost empty stretch of highway. My phone signal flickered to 1 bar, then nothing. I remember thinking how the dark out there didn't feel like night. It felt like distance. Like if I stepped out of the car, there'd be nothing to stop me from falling forever. My headlights cut out a roadside sign, Motel, vacancy, 1 mile. The arrow on it pointed toward a smaller road veering off into the dark. I argued with myself for maybe 30 seconds. I could push through. I could make it closer to Portland, but my mother's voice was louder than my ego. I took the exit onto a cracked 2-lane road lined with tall skeletal trees. After a few minutes, a low, L-shaped motel emerged from the dark, its neon sign flickering Vax NCY. The parking lot had only one other car, an old blue sedan with no plates on the front. The office door chimed when I walked in. A woman in her 50s with too bright lipstick and tired eyes looked up from behind the desk. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Long drive?" she asked, her voice oddly flat. "Yeah," I said, setting my ID and card on the counter. "Heading to a job interview in Portland." "Good for you," she said. "Room 13 okay?" She knew my answer before I gave it. Room 13 was at the end of the corridor, away from the humming soda machine and the buzzing ice maker. The hallway smelled like old carpet and something faintly metallic, like dried blood that someone had tried to cover with lemon cleaner. I told myself I was being dramatic. Inside, the room was exactly what $29.99 buys you in the middle of nowhere. Beige walls with peeling corners, a bedspread in a floral pattern that had given up years ago, a small TV bolted to a bracket, and a bathroom with a fan that rattled when I turned it on. There was also a door leading to the next room, One of those thin, shared doors you sometimes get in older motels. It had a deadbolt on my side. I turned it, then pulled. The door moved just a little, then stuck, like something on the other side was pushing back. I stared at it for a second, then laughed nervously. "Old building," I muttered. The lock was engaged. That should have been enough. I showered quick, the water shifting from lukewarm to freezing without warning. When I stepped out, the room felt colder, though I hadn't touched the thermostat. I pulled on a t-shirt and sweats, lay on the bed, and scrolled the same 3 apps on my phone, even though I had no service. Eventually, I turned off the lamp. The darkness in that room felt different than the dark on the highway. Thicker, heavier, like it had weight. I stared at the red digits of the alarm clock. 1:42 a.m. I was just starting to drift when I heard it. A voice, very soft, very close, like someone whispering through a wall. "Don't go." At first I thought I was dreaming. I held my breath and listened. Nothing. My heart pounded in my ears. Then again, clearer this time, right by the shared door. "Don't go. Please." I sat up, switched on the lamp, and stared at the door. The deadbolt was still turned. The small chain on the main door to the parking lot hung loose. I forced my voice to sound braver than I felt. "Hello?" No answer. Just the old fan in the bathroom and the buzz of the neon outside. I got off the bed and pressed my ear to the shared door. A faint sound came through, like fabric rubbing against itself, or someone shifting their weight. I slid the deadbolt back, half wondering if I was about to open the door to some drunk who'd gotten the wrong room. The door pulled an inch, then stopped hard, like there was a solid wall there. I smelled something then. Not rot, not garbage. Something like old sweat, fear, and disinfectant. It made my stomach clench. "Who's there?" I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. A whisper came back right on the other side, words pressed through teeth. "You shouldn't have stopped." I barely slept after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that voice, replaying that last sentence over and over. When my phone alarm finally went off at 6 a.m., I was already sitting up, fully dressed, bag packed. Sunlight made the room look smaller but less threatening. I told myself I'd imagined the voice, that I'd been half asleep and overtired. Still, I avoided looking directly at the shared door when I left. The woman at the front desk was there again, reading a paperback. She glanced at me, then at the clock. "Early start," she said. "Big day," I answered, tapping my folder with my resume. Weird question. Someone's in the room next to 13, right?" Her smile thinned. "No," she said. "You're the only guest on that side." I felt a small chill run up my spine. "I heard talking," I said carefully. "Maybe the TV?" She shook her head. "The cable's been out on that wing for months." I must have looked unsettled, because her eyes softened a bit, sympathy sliding through the tiredness. She hesitated, then said quietly, "Sometimes people hear things in that room. I don't rent it out unless I have to. Last night, you looked like you were about to fall asleep at the wheel." "What kind of things?" I asked. Her gaze drifted past me for a second, to nothing in particular. Voices, crying, sometimes a man shouting, sometimes, "Please." I called a pastor once. He told me some places just hold on to things. She pulled open a drawer and took out a thin manila folder, slapping it softly on the counter like she'd been waiting for an excuse to do it. "5 years ago, a kid about your age stopped here on his way to Portland," she said. "Said he had a big college presentation, some business pitch. Stayed in 13. He left before dawn, dead set on making it to the city in time. About 40 miles down the highway, he hit the median and rolled his car 3 times. They said he was probably asleep when it happened. Never hit the brakes." She tapped the folder. "His parents came by, took his stuff. I still get Christmas cards from them. I can't bring myself to throw these away." She opened it a crack. Inside, I saw a photo of a smiling kid in a graduation cap and an accident report. I recognized the car make and model, same as mine. A tight feeling wound up in my chest. "Why keep renting that room out?" I asked, my voice shaky. She shrugged. "Because people like you keep coming through here, eyes half closed, telling me they're fine to drive. I'd rather you hear a voice and wake up scared than end up a name in a file." Then softer, "You heard him, didn't you?" I thought about saying no. Instead, I nodded, once. The rest of the drive to Portland felt different. The highway was the same cracked ribbon of asphalt, the same semi-trucks and sun-bleached mile markers, but I felt like I was stuck between someone else's past and my own future. Every time my eyes got heavy, I heard that whisper again. "You shouldn't have stopped." Only now it felt less like a warning and more like regret. I made it to the city with 2 hours to spare, parked in a downtown garage, and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked like hell. Red eyes, drawn face. I almost skipped the interview, but I went in, shook hands, answered questions. The hiring manager, a guy in his 30s with a sharp haircut and a rehearsed smile, said, "We like people who push through. You must have left pretty early." "Stopped about halfway," I said. My voice caught on the word stopped. "Figured it was safer." He smirked slightly. "Most people your age would just drive straight. Hustle, right?" There was something in his tone I didn't like, some casual dismissal of limits. I heard that motel woman's voice in my head, telling me she'd rather have guests scared than dead. On the wall behind him was a framed poster, "Move fast or die slow." I thought of the folder with the graduate's photo. "Honestly," I said, meeting his eyes, "I don't think any job is worth falling asleep behind the wheel for." His smirk faded. We wrapped up. 2 days later, he emailed me a polite rejection. "We've decided to move forward with other candidates." Back home, my parents were disappointed in that careful, quiet way that parents get when they're trying not to show it. Ethan said, "Their loss, man. You'll find something better." Months passed. I got another job, less exciting on paper, 20 minutes from home. Sometimes at night, when I'm driving back from a late shift, I hear a voice in the hum of the tires or in the static between radio stations. "Don't go. You shouldn't have stopped." I still don't know if what I heard in room 13 was a ghost, my own exhausted brain, or some lingering imprint of a kid who never made it to his big day. But I know this. Every time I get behind the wheel tired, I see that graduation photo in my mind and pull into the first safe place to rest. When friends tell me their big plans, their all-night drives to interviews, to business pitches, to college orientations, I tell them this story. Not because I want to scare them, but because I want them to understand something that took me a while to really believe. Last September, my wife Carla and I drove from Portland down to Sacramento for her cousin's wedding. We were both exhausted from work and too broke for a motel, so we decided to do it in one go. She's a nurse, I'm an electrician, and long road trips had become this rare luxury we pretended were mini vacations. We left before sunrise in my beat-up Subaru Outback, cooler wedged between our luggage, true crime podcast droning through the speakers. By the time we hit Northern California, the sky was a harsh blue, and the trees had thinned into those dry hills that look like they're always one spark away from burning. Somewhere past Redding, Carla fell asleep with her forehead against the window, mouth slightly open, boots kicked off. I lowered the volume and focused on the endless strip of highway. That's when I saw him. A silver pickup on the shoulder, hood up, hazard lights blinking, a man standing beside it waving his arms. His movements were slow, almost tired, like he had been out there for a while. I felt that tiny pull of guilt you get when you pass someone who needs help. I eased off the gas. "Don't," Carla mumbled, half asleep. "Just be careful. It's daytime." I said. We'll just give him a ride to the next exit. I told myself it was safe. Open sky, decent cell service. Nothing like the horror stories you hear about nighttime highways. Still, when I pulled onto the shoulder about 50 feet past him, my gut did this small twist I decided to ignore. He jogged up to Carla's side of the car and leaned down, palms resting on the door. He looked like any middle-aged guy you'd see at Home Depot. Faded flannel shirt, jeans, a baseball cap with some farm supply logo, graying stubble. His face was sun-baked and lined, but his smile seemed easy. Man, am I glad you stopped, he said. Name's Greg. Fuel pump just died on me. Been out here almost 2 hours. Nobody even slowed down. His voice had this mild southern drawl, not thick, just enough to make him sound friendly. He explained he was heading to Stockton to see his daughter, that he was trying to make it before dark. The story came out smooth, like he'd told it more than once. We can drop you at the next town, I said, wherever there's a shop or gas station. He nodded, eyes flicking to the back seat. I got a bag. Mind if I throw it in and ride with you that far? Daylight. Carla awake now, watching him carefully. One guy, 2 of us. The math seemed to favor us. I told him to grab his bag and sit in the back. He slid in behind Carla, setting a navy gym bag on his lap. As I merged back onto the highway, I caught him in the rear view adjusting his cap, then staring out at the passing hills. For the first 10 minutes, everything felt normal. He made small talk about the heat, about driving long distances, about how kids these days don't know how to change a tire. Carla asked a few polite questions about his daughter, where she went to school, what she studied. His answers were vague. Computers, he said. Something with computers. Smart kid. It wasn't until he started watching my GPS that I felt that twist in my gut again. His eyes kept drifting to the phone mounted on the dash, tracking the little blue line like it meant more to him than it should have. We drove in this heavy, fake, casual silence for a while. The sun was high, flattening everything into pale browns and yellows. A green sign loomed in the distance. Cottonwood, 2 miles. Under it, icons for gas, food, lodging. I felt relieved. We could drop Greg off, wish him luck, and get back to being just tired instead of wary. There's a town coming up, I said, more for Carla than for him. We'll pull off there, find you a mechanic. I flipped on my blinker. That's when his voice changed. Keep going straight, he said, sharper. This town's no good. Nothing open on Thursdays. It was Thursday, middle of the day. I frowned. There's a gas symbol on the sign, man. Something's open. He leaned forward just enough that I could see his face in the mirror. The smile was gone. His eyes looked different, flatter, like the warmth had drained out of them. I said keep going, he repeated, slower this time. I know this stretch. Next decent place is like 30 miles. We're better off there. Carla shifted in her seat, angle of her shoulders changing. I could tell she felt it too now, that thin electric tension. We'll stop here, she said firmly, not turning around. You can get help from someone local. Greg didn't answer right away. He just stared at the back of her head. I could feel it, this cold intensity filling up the cabin. I'm telling you, he said eventually, voice barely above a murmur. Cottonwood is a bad idea. I took the exit anyway. The second I committed to the ramp, something behind me thudded softly, like a bag shifting on the seat. Carla's hand slid over and gripped my thigh under the wheel hard enough to hurt. She didn't say anything, but I knew we were thinking the same thing. We had made a mistake. Just not the one he thought. The off-ramp curved down toward a patchwork of gas stations and low buildings. Relief washed through me when I spotted a busy chevron on the right, cars at every pump, people moving around. Civilization, witnesses, cameras. Perfect, I said too brightly. We'll pull in there. My voice sounded wrong, like I was acting in a bad play. That's when Greg spoke again. Stop the car, he said. Not asked, ordered. I didn't. I pretended I hadn't heard him. I said, "Stop the car," he repeated louder. Something metallic clicked behind us. Carla went rigid. I glanced in the mirror and saw him holding a small folding knife, blade already out, resting point down against his thigh. His other hand gripped the handle of his gym bag too tight, knuckles pale. "Pull into that lot," he said, nodding toward a dirt turnout before the gas station, half hidden by scrub and a broken sign. Not the Chevron. Too crowded. Time slowed. I remember calculating the distance to the Chevron, the speed we were going, the angle of his arm, how fast he might move if I tried to bolt. I remember thinking absurd things, like how much I still owed on the Subaru and that my mom would kill me if she knew I had picked up a stranger. Carla spoke first. "There are cameras at the gas station," she said, voice steady but low. "We're going there. If you don't want to be seen, you can get out now." He laughed once, no humor in it. "You think anyone's gonna help you?" he asked. "You think anybody cares?" He leaned forward, knife now visible between the seats. Not lunging, just reminding us it was there. "You ever hear about people vanishing off highways?" he asked conversationally. "It happens fast, faster than you'd think." The entrance to the Chevron lot was coming up on the right. I made a decision I still replay in my head every night. I floored it and jerked the wheel hard toward the entrance. Greg lurched sideways with the momentum, slamming into the back door. Carla whirled and grabbed his wrist with both hands. For a second, the knife hovered, inches from my neck. Then the car bounced over the curb, and everything turned to chaos. The Subaru shot into the Chevron lot at an angle, tires squealing. I aimed straight for the front of the store, where people were walking in and out. A guy at the pump yelled something as we fishtailed to a stop. Carla was still locked on Greg's arm, both of them struggling over the knife. "Get out!" she screamed at him. "Drop it and get out!" He stopped fighting abruptly and went very still. For a heartbeat, the three of us just breathed, loud and ragged. Then Greg smiled. It was the most unsettling thing I'd ever seen, way worse than the knife. "You're smarter than you look," he said softly. He folded the blade, slipped it into his pocket in one smooth motion, grabbed his gym bag and opened the door. Before he stepped out, he leaned in close to Carla's ear and whispered something I couldn't hear. Her face went white. He climbed out like this was all a minor inconvenience and walked away across the lot, casual, almost lazy. He didn't look back. No one else seemed to notice anything strange. Just another guy with a bag heading toward the road. Inside the store, the manager called 911 for us while Carla shook so hard she spilled coffee all over her hands. She told the operator everything, down to the way his voice changed near the exit, the way he insisted we skip the town. I gave a statement to the highway patrol who showed up 20 minutes later. They took it seriously, but without him brandishing the knife where anyone else could see, it felt like smoke in my hands. The officer said something that still curls in my stomach. "We've had a couple weird reports in this area the past few months. People going missing between small towns. If you hadn't come off at a busy station..." He let the sentence hang. That night, long after we made it safely to Sacramento, Carla told me what Greg had whispered. He said, "Another 30 miles and no one would have seen you again," she said. Then he told me, "You'll think about me every time you see a pickup." He was right. I do. I think about that knife, and the way he watched my GPS, and the way my own politeness almost got us killed. I think about how ordinary he looked standing there on the shoulder. Here's the part that haunts me most. A few weeks later, I saw a post on Reddit from someone in California talking about a man with a silver pickup and a broken-down story, asking for a ride. Different details. Same pattern. People in the comments argued if it was real or not. Internet drama. Entertainment. For me, it wasn't a story. It was the moment I understood how close a normal day can come to ending. You don't owe strangers access to your car, your time, or your safety just because they ask nicely. Help from a distance. Call for them. Report what you see. But trust that tight feeling in your gut. Fear is sometimes just your survival instinct trying to keep you alive. Back when I was 19, I thought bad things only happened to people on the news. I was a sophomore at a state college in Utah, stuck between a business degree I didn't care about and a social life that revolved around cheap beer and group chats. Spring break was coming up, and everyone was either flying somewhere expensive or going home. My best friend Taylor and I didn't have that kind of money, but we wanted out of town so badly it hurt. One night in the dorm lounge, we were scrolling through Google Maps when Taylor said, "San Francisco." We drive there, stay in some crappy motels, post a ton of photos, and make everyone back here jealous. It sounded ridiculous and perfect. I had an old Civic my uncle sold me for cheap. She had a credit card with barely any limit. We threw together a plan that mostly consisted of head west and figure it out. My mom, on the phone, said, "Don't drive at night, and don't stop in the middle of nowhere if you can help it." I told her I'd be smart. I believed it when I said it. We left on a Thursday afternoon, snacks in the back seat, playlists loaded, the kind of slightly desperate happiness only college kids with nothing figured out can manage. The first part of the drive was almost fun. Mountains, open sky, laughing about dumb professors. We were 4 hours in when we hit the stretch of I-70 that feels like the world just falls away into silence. It was just past 8 p.m. when we pulled off at this small gas station near the Utah-Colorado line. The sun had dropped, but hadn't fully committed to night yet. That weird, in-between light made everything look flatter, like a backdrop. Taylor went inside for snacks while I pumped gas. There was another car at the far pump, a faded red Jetta with 2 girls about our age, laughing about something on a phone. For a minute, I felt that weird twin feeling, like we were all copies of each other on slightly different timelines. Then I noticed him. He was at the pump behind them in a dark green pickup, maybe late 30s, maybe early 40s. Work boots, trucker cap, tan lines you only get from being outside all day. Nothing about him was special except his eyes. He wasn't just glancing at the girls, he was staring. Hard. His face was blank, but his eyes flicked between them with this dead focus that made the hair on my arms stand up. I told myself I was judging. He could have been daydreaming, zoned out. Then one of the girls dropped something, bent down to grab it, and I watched his gaze follow the movement in this slow, hungry way that had nothing to do with being distracted. Taylor came back out carrying chips and a giant soda. "You good?" she asked, seeing my face. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." The girls finished first, got into their Jetta, and pulled out onto the highway heading west. The man didn't move at first. He watched their car leave, still expressionless, then suddenly snapped into motion. He capped his tank, jumped into his truck, and pulled out right after them, way faster than he needed to. Taylor saw the taillights leaving. "He's in a hurry," she said. My stomach nodded. Without really deciding to, I pulled out too, a minute later, keeping a distance. My mom's warning about middle of nowhere kept looping through my head, mashed up with something darker I couldn't fully name. We caught up to them faster than I expected. That stretch of I-70 is long and empty at night, no streetlights, just darkness pressing in on the edges of your headlights. The Jetta was in the right lane, the pickup glued to its bumper like a shadow. His high beams were on, flooding their car with light, flashing occasionally. Even from behind, you could tell the girls were freaking out. Their brake lights tapped, then stayed steady. "What is he doing?" Taylor asked, leaning forward to get a better look. "Trying to get them to pull over," I said, my voice coming out flatter than I meant it to. The pickup suddenly swerved into the left lane, pulling up beside the Jetta. I could see him leaning across the cab, shouting something through the open passenger window. The girl's car started drifting toward the shoulder, hazard lights blinking on. I felt my heart lurch. "No," I whispered, gripping the wheel. "Don't." Taylor looked at me. "What?" "He's not a cop," I said. "He's not. That's not how cops pull people over." As if he'd heard me, the man jerked the pickup ahead and then back again, trying to position himself in front of them like he wanted them boxed in. Then, as their car slowed more, he suddenly sped up, pulling away down the highway. "Maybe he gave up," Taylor said, but she didn't sound convinced. The Jetta coasted onto the shoulder and stopped. For a split second, the world felt delicately balanced on a pin. I could have driven on, told myself it was none of my business, that I was making assumptions. Instead, I flipped on my hazard lights and pulled in behind them, leaving some space. The gravel crunched under our tires. The air outside looked colder than it should. "What are we doing?" Taylor asked. "Being witnesses," I said. It sounded braver than I felt. We both got out. The two girls ahead of us were already stepping out of their car, looking shaky. One of them, the driver, had tears in her eyes. "Was that guy with you?" she blurted. "No," I said. "We saw him at the gas station. He followed you out." The passenger swallowed hard. "He said he was a deputy. He was shouting at us to pull over or we'd go to jail." I glanced down the empty highway. No sign of him now, just the disappearing glow of taillights far ahead. "Real cops don't do that," I said. "They don't drive like that, and they don't yell at you from a pickup." Taylor, always quicker to accept the worst, said, "He saw us behind you. He bailed when he realized you weren't alone." We all climbed back into our cars, doors shut, windows cracked. The highway's silence felt suddenly loud. I dug my phone out. Miraculously, I had one bar of service. I dialed 911. It took a moment to connect. The operator sounded calm, almost bored at first. Location, nature of emergency, until I said, "We think a man in a green pickup just tried to force two girls off the road pretending to be a cop." Her tone changed. Sharper, more awake. She had me describe the truck, the man, the gas station. Asked if anyone had gotten a plate number. Of course I hadn't. It hadn't even occurred to me. Guilt crawled up the back of my neck. "Stay in your vehicles," she said firmly. "Lock the doors. I'm sending a patrol car. Do not follow anyone. Do not drive off until an officer talks to you." We waited. 10 minutes felt like an hour. Every set of approaching headlights made my chest tighten. I kept imagining the green pickup circling back, pulling in behind us this time, pinning us on the shoulder with no other cars around. When a patrol SUV finally rolled up with real red and blue lights, I almost cried. The officer was a woman about my mom's age. She came to my window first, flashlight beam carefully low so she didn't blind me. I explained everything again while she took notes. "You did the right thing," she said. "Too many people see something off and just keep going." "Was he really pretending to be a cop?" I asked. "We don't know yet," she said. "But we've had a few calls over the years about someone out here doing traffic stops that aren't official." She glanced back at the girl's car. "You may have scared him off permanently." Later, when she stepped a few feet away to talk to the dispatcher on her radio, I heard a piece of something I still think about. A binational warning had gone out about a man in a dark pickup on rural highways in 2 states, approaching female drivers alone at night. No badge, no uniform, just a story, a tone of voice, and the implied threat of what might happen if you didn't obey. When she came back, she told us, "If anyone ever tries to pull you over and it doesn't feel right, call 911. You can drive to a lit, public place. Real officers know that. We'd rather you be cautious than compliant with the wrong person." We nodded. We all said we understood. I'm not sure we fully did at the time. We made it to San Francisco the next day, and on the surface the trip went how you'd expect. Photos on the Golden Gate Bridge, clam chowder in sourdough bowls, long walks up ridiculous hills, pretending we were cooler and more put together than we were. But every time we saw a dark pickup, Taylor would go quiet for a second. Every time someone slowed too close behind us, my hands tightened on the wheel. On the way back, we refused to drive at night. We stuck to daylight and gas stations with lots of cars. Months later, back at school, The whole thing started to feel like something we'd exaggerated. My brain tried to file it away under weird but harmless. Then one night I saw a post online about a girl in another state who disappeared after texting her roommate that she'd been pulled over by some cop in a truck. It hit me in the chest like a fist. I don't know if it was the same guy. I don't know if the man we saw ever hurt anyone, or if we just caught him in the early testing stage of something worse. What I do know is that fear has a smell. I smelled it on those girls. I feel it again anytime someone jokes about being paranoid for not pulling over on a deserted road. I've told this story on forums, in comments, in late-night conversations with people I barely know. Sometimes I get accused of making it up for attention. Sometimes people thank me. I'm not posting this because I think I'm a hero. I'm posting it because I almost did what most people do. I almost looked away. I almost convinced myself it was none of my business, that I was overreacting, that surely nothing would happen. If you ever see something that twists your gut like that man did mine, listen to it. Be the extra set of headlights. Be the reason someone doesn't end up as a missing person flyer. I used to think sleep deprivation was just feeling groggy and guzzling coffee. Before this road trip, I had no idea how far your mind can bend before it finally snaps. I was 27, between contracts, and decided to drive from Oregon to Ohio alone to help my sister move back home. Money was tight, so I skipped flights and hotels, planning to sleep in my car at rest areas. 3 days, almost 2,400 miles. I told myself it would be fine. I'd done long drives before, but I'd never done them with a brain already frayed by weeks of stress, a breakup, and the kind of quiet depression you only admit to yourself at 2 a.m. I left with a full tank and an empty head, not realizing one would drain a lot faster than the other. By the time I hit Idaho, the sun was sinking, and so was my focus. I pulled into a small rest area that looked decent enough. 2 semis, a pickup, and me. I used the bathroom, grabbed a soda from the vending machine, then sat in my car scrolling my phone. A sedan pulled in and parked 2 spaces away. The driver, a guy in his late 40s with a baseball cap and a plain gray hoodie, walked past my car and gave me a tight, oddly delayed smile. His eyes didn't match it. "Long drive?" he asked, pausing by my window. "Yeah," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "Cross country?" He nodded too slowly. "Dangerous to do that alone." Something about the way he said alone made my skin crawl. I muttered something about needing sleep and reclined my seat, pretending to settle in. After a minute, I peeked through the side of my jacket and saw him still there, just standing by his sedan, watching my car like he was waiting for something that involved me. I didn't stay. My gut wouldn't let me. I sat up, started the car, and pulled out. In my mirror, I saw him move quickly back to his sedan. I told myself I was imagining him rushing to follow me. I put on a podcast to drown out my thoughts and watched the fuel gauge edge closer to empty. I'd meant to fill up at the last town, but kept thinking I'd stop at the next one. The exits started getting more spread out, and the reassuring glow of gas station signs disappeared. 30 minutes later, my gas light blinked on. The road around me was just black, with only my headlights carving out a small tunnel of safety. My eyes burned, my hands shook, and every shadow on the shoulder looked like someone standing there. I saw a sign that said, "Next service is 32 miles," right as my engine coughed. "You've got to be kidding me," I whispered. I eased onto the shoulder and the car sputtered to a stop. I sat there in the dark, hood cooling, feeling like the world had narrowed to this dead car and my own stupid decisions. There's a different kind of quiet on a highway shoulder at night. It's not peaceful. It's heavy, like the air is waiting for something. I turned off my lights to save the battery and sat there trying to convince myself I had options. I could call roadside assistance, but my signal was weak and my membership had lapsed. Walking seemed insane, but the idea of just sitting there felt worse. Before I could decide, I saw it, a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror, much dimmer than they should have been, crawling toward me. Too slow for highway speed. Every hair on my arm stood up. My first thought was, maybe it's a cop or someone helpful. My second was, why are they going that slow? The car pulled up behind me and stopped, headlights still on low beam. I could only see a silhouette in the driver's seat. No one got out. They just sat there, watching my car. I cracked my window an inch and called out, "Hey, you okay back there?" Silence. Then the driver turned off their headlights, plunging the world behind me into pure darkness. Someone knocked on my window exactly once. Not a tap, a solid, patient knock. My heart slammed into my ribs. I turned my head slowly, and there he was, inches from my face. The man from the first rest stop. Gray hoodie, baseball cap, same wrong smile. No car had passed me. No new headlights had appeared. But he was there. "Told you it's dangerous to do this alone," he said softly, like we were in on some private joke. "You followed me?" I asked, my voice thin. He tilted his head. "You ran out of gas right where I needed you to." That sentence didn't make sense, and that made it worse. My hand fumbled for my phone. He leaned closer. "Don't call anyone. They never get here in time out here." His breath fogged the glass. Something in me snapped from fear into something like clarity. I rolled the window up the last inch, jammed the door lock again, and stared straight ahead. "If you don't leave," I said, surprised by how steady I sounded, "I'm calling the cops and giving them your plate, your face, and telling them you've been tailing me for hours." He didn't move for a long time. Then he laughed. Not loud, just a low, thin sound like something breaking. "You're already alone," he said. "Remember that." He stepped away. After a few minutes, his headlights flicked on behind me like they'd been off the whole time, and his car pulled back onto the highway and vanished. I've been driving long haul for 20 years, and I've seen most of what the road can throw at you. Drunks drifting across 3 lanes, black ice that turns asphalt into glass, blown tires at 70 miles an hour. But what happened on Highway 85 inches western Nebraska last winter is the only time I've ever wondered if my mind and the road finally broke each other. That night, I wasn't some rookie. I was 42, twice divorced, living out of my sleeper more than my rented room in Cheyenne. I ran a solo route hauling refrigerated produce from Denver up through Nebraska and the Dakotas, chasing delivery windows that left no room for sleep or mistakes. The pay was decent, the miles long, and the silence in the cab usually kept my thoughts from getting too loud. But the thing about spending your life on empty highways is that you start to notice when the road stops behaving like it should. And on that stretch near mile marker 312, the road didn't make sense anymore. I left Denver late, around 10 p.m., already behind schedule thanks to some warehouse mix-up. Dispatch told me if I missed my 8 a.m., drop north of Rapid City, I'd eat the penalty. I'd pulled this run 100 times, knew every gas station, every lonely town, every dead radio zone. But that night the fog rolled in fast, thicker than anything I'd seen on that route, swallowing the headlights into a gray wall. I dropped down to 50, then 40, eyes straining for the faint reflection of lane markings. The CB had been dead for an hour when it suddenly crackled. Breaker 1 to 9, anyone northbound on 85, come back. The voice was low, tired, with this ragged scrape between words, like each breath hurt. I grabbed the mic. "Yeah, this is Lone Star. Northbound about 3 to 10. You seeing this fog too?" There was a pause, just static. Then the voice came back, closer somehow. "Copy that, Lone Star. You're coming up on trouble. Slow it down to 30. There's a rig sideways across both lanes around 312. You got maybe a mile." I eased off the throttle, heart kicking up. "You sure?" I asked. "Ain't seen tail lights in half an hour." The guy answered with a dry little laugh that turned into a cough so bad I thought he dropped the mic. "Been running this stretch since 85, friend, I'm sure. Black Volvo with a white reefer, company out of Kansas City. Driver's okay, but she's blocking the whole damn road. You'll see her soon enough." I flicked on my hazards, dropped to 30, fingers aching on the wheel. The fog got thicker, swallowing my high beam so bad I switched back to low. Somewhere under the hum of my engine, I realized my chest felt tight, like the air got heavier. Another call from the radio. You're at 311 now. Start hugging the center line. There's a narrow shoulder on the left. You can squeeze through. I glanced at the odometer and my stomach dropped. The last marker I'd passed said 297, not 311. There shouldn't have been a 311 yet. I hadn't driven that far. My log time didn't match. Still, my hands kept doing what the voice told me. A shadow formed in the mist ahead, huge and flat across the road like the silhouette of a toppled building. My headlights slid across the reflective tape of a trailer sprawled sideways, exactly where the voice said. White reefer, black Volvo cab. I swore out loud. My rig's ABS kicked in as I braked, my trailer twitching but holding straight. I crept left, wheels kissing the rumble strip, barely squeezing past. As I rolled by, I saw the other driver standing outside her truck, phone to her ear, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. On the CB, the voice wheezed again. Told you, Lone Star, you're clear now. Fog'll break after the curve at 313. Watch the shoulder, it crumbles there. Learned that the hard way in 99. I asked. You parked up ahead? The answer came slow, thick. Nah, I'm out here same as you. Old burgundy Kenworth W900 with a silver stripe. Name's Hank. Most folks call me Rust Bucket on the wire. As I passed the wreck, I checked both mirrors. Through the fog, maybe 30 yards back, I thought I saw it. An old Kenworth, paint dull, lights faint, sitting dead still on the shoulder. Then the CB popped and went silent. When I finally rolled into the receiving dock after sunrise, the fog already felt like a bad dream. The wreck stuck with me though. So after unloading, I called the Nebraska State Patrol to report it. The trooper on the line listened, then asked me to hold. When he came back, his voice had that careful tone cops use when they think you're unstable. Sir, we've checked our logs and DOT alerts. There was no accident near mile 312 last night. No lane closures. Are you sure about the location? I was. I could still see the Kansas City logo on that trailer. Later, at a truck stop, I asked a couple drivers if they'd heard a guy called Rust Bucket on Channel 19. One old-timer went real quiet. Hank Rust Bucket Carson? He asked. Died out here in '09. Heart attack at the wheel. Burgundy Kenworth W900. They pulled him out near mile 312. Foggy night. He used to say that curve would kill him. I didn't sleep much after that. I dug around online for hours. Sheriff's reports, obituaries. And in the middle of some old trucking forum, I found a thread from 2014. 3 different drivers talking about a raspy voice named Rust Bucket warning them about hazards that didn't make the official logs but turned out real. One guy swore Hank talked him through black ice. Another mentioned his odometer not matching the mile markers after the call. My own logs had the same kind of gap that night. These days, if dispatch wants me on 85 in heavy fog, I turn it down. I'll eat the lost miles. I don't pretend to know if Hank's out there, or if the road itself is playing tricks on drivers who are tired enough to listen. All I know is this. Something warned me about that wreck. Something that shouldn't have been there. I'd been driving professionally for less than a year when it happened, still in that phase where every mistake feels like it might end your whole career. I was 23, running regional routes out of Idaho in a tired old Volvo that smelled like diesel, burnt coffee, and whatever the last guy spilled under the bunk. My first 6 months had been rough. I'd clipped a pole at a shipper, misjudged a turn and taken out a mailbox, and once forgot to crank my landing gear all the way up, dragging it 10 miles and chewing it to hell. My dispatcher rode me hard, and I was terrified of losing the only job that made me feel worth a damn. So I pushed myself stupid. I'd run my 11 hours to the second, then sit there twitching, convincing myself I could squeeze in just a little more. Every safety video I watched felt like it was scolding some other idiot, not me. I thought I was tougher than fatigue, smarter than bad weather. That's the thing about being young on the road. You don't know how much you don't know until it almost kills you. It was late November, raining the way it only seems to rain in the Pacific Northwest, sideways and endless. I'd picked up a load of dry goods in Boise and was headed west on I-84 toward Portland. The dispatcher had warned me it was tight on hours, but if I made good time and didn't waste it at the pump, I'd beat the 11-hour limit and snag a bonus. I was obsessed with that bonus. Rent was due, my card was near maxed, and I'd been eating discount ramen for weeks, so I drove like every minute mattered. That morning, the sky was a uniform slab of gray, the kind that feels like it's resting on your shoulders. The wipers squeaked and thumped, never quite keeping up. Trucks passed me, then vanished into mist, their taillights smearing red across my windshield. Around noon, I felt the first wave of exhaustion. That big, rolling yawn that makes your jaw pop. I told myself I'd stop at a rest area after the next hour, then the next, then the next. My logbook said I was fine. My body said I was lying. By the time I crossed into Oregon, my eyes burned and every mile marker felt further apart than the last. It was mid-afternoon, but the sky made it look like dusk. I'd turned off the radio an hour earlier because even the noise felt like too much work. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was debris, a tire, maybe sitting on the narrow, grassy median between the east and westbound lanes. But as I got closer, the shape resolved into a man, standing perfectly still in the rain. No car, no hazard lights, nothing. Just a lone figure facing traffic with his hands at his sides, head tilted slightly down. He wore a dark coat, maybe navy or black, and jeans that looked too clean for a guy stranded in mud. His hair was slicked to his forehead. I couldn't see his face, but something about his posture made the hairs on my arms stand up. The median there was barely wide enough to stand on safely. Any gust of wind, any slip, and you'd be in front of a semi. My first thought was suicide. I eased off the throttle and scanned for a wreck or a parked car on either side, nothing. As I passed him, I glanced in the mirror. He was still there, motionless, but his head had turned slightly, like he was watching my trailer go by. I checked the clock. I'd been driving 10 hours and 23 minutes. My brain felt like it was full of wet cotton. I told myself I was seeing things. Maybe he'd already been reported. Maybe it was a trick of the light. I kept driving. About 40 minutes later, the rain picked up. The road curved and climbed, and my focus narrowed to the white lines and the faint glow of reflectors. I'd started seeing weird little flashes at the edges of my vision, shapes that looked like animals darting away, only to vanish when I turned my head. More than once, I blinked and realized I'd missed the last couple of mile markers entirely. That's the kind of tired they warn you about, but you don't understand until you're there, your brain skipping like a scratched CD. Then I saw him again. Same side of the highway, same median, same dark coat, same slightly bowed head. I knew it was impossible. I hadn't turned around, I hadn't exited, and there was no way he could have sprinted ahead of me again and again without a car. As I approached, my chest tightened. The closer I got, the more detailed he became. Pale hands, wet denim. This time, I caught a hint of his face, a grayish pallor, like someone who'd been inside a morgue drawer too long. His eyes seemed closed. I told myself it had to be a different man. It had to be. There was no way it was the same one. I passed him and checked my mirror. For a second, I could have sworn his head snapped up and turned toward me, but the spray from my tires smeared everything into a blur. My pulse hammered in my throat. I checked the clock again. 10 hours and 51 minutes. I promised myself I'd stop at the next exit, just to rest my eyes. Then another sign flashed by. No services. Next 30 miles. My mouth went dry. The last half hour of that drive is mostly missing from my memory, replaced by a few bright, sharp images like broken glass, my hands slipping on the wheel, the wipers pausing mid-stroke as if time itself hiccuped, the yellow line swelling and shrinking in front of me like a living thing. I remember blinking hard and realizing my truck had drifted toward the rumble strip. The sudden vibration under the tires scared me awake for a second. Then I saw him a third time. This time, he wasn't in the median. He was standing on the right shoulder, directly ahead, as if he'd stepped out from behind the guardrail. Same coat, same posture, head bowed, hands loose at his sides. The difference was that now he was facing my lane, just a few feet from the fog line. No car, no other traffic. Nothing but him and me, and the scream of my engine. My whole body reacted before my brain caught up. I jerked the wheel left, overcorrected, and felt the trailer start to pull. The world swung sideways. I heard myself shout something wordless, some mix of no and a curse. For a heartbeat, I was sure I'd roll. The trailer shuddered, but the tires caught. I wrestled it back, heart thudding against my ribs so hard it hurt. When I glanced in the mirror, the shoulder was empty. No man, no coat, nothing. I limped off at the next wide spot and parked crooked, hands shaking. I sat there for 10 minutes, gasping, feeling like something had just taken a long look at me and decided to let me go for now. I'm pushing 58 now, and I've spent more of my life in a truck cab than in any house I ever paid rent on. I didn't grow up wanting to be a trucker. I grew up wanting to be invisible. My old man was a drunk with fast hands and a slower conscience, and my mom's idea of parenting was turning the TV up so she didn't have to hear us cry. By the time I turned 18, I'd already learned two things. Staying out of the house meant fewer bruises, and the farther you were from home, the safer you felt. I dropped out of community college after one semester when I realized I spent more time sleeping in my car than in class. A guy I unloaded freight for told me I could make decent money driving and, more importantly, always be anywhere but home. That sounded like heaven. I took what little I had, got my CDL, and climbed into my first beat-up Freightliner. Over the years, the road became my whole world. Diners, truck stops, motel parking lots, they all blurred together into one long, humming memory. Most of my stories are about late-night runs, weird weather, and drivers who shouldn't be trusted with a lawnmower, let alone an 18-wheeler. But there's one night on I-90 inches Montana that still makes my hands sweat when I think about it. Like the fear got trapped in the cab with me and never really left. It was late October, about 10 years back, somewhere between Billings and Missoula. That stretch of I-90 can feel like another planet after midnight. Just you, your headlights, and a whole lot of black. It was about 2:30 a.m., cold enough that the windshield frost started creeping inward at the corners. I was hauling a half-load of appliances westbound, cruise control at 65, talk radio low. The CB was dead quiet. I hadn't passed another truck in 20 minutes. That's when I saw something that didn't belong. At first, it looked like a trash bag blowing along the shoulder. Then it moved wrong, too slow, too deliberate. I dipped my high beams and saw a figure crouched in the drainage ditch between the highway and the fence line. Just a white smear against the dead grass. I eased off the throttle without even thinking. That old, stupid part of me that still believes in helping people waking up. As I got closer, I realized it was a girl. Maybe 19 or 20. Long dark hair stuck to her face, bare legs, an oversized sweatshirt hanging off one shoulder, no jacket. She was hugging her knees, shaking. No car, no lights, just her and the cold and the empty road. Every trucker knows better than to stop for strangers in the middle of nowhere. But I thought about my own daughter, Emma, who died when she was 16 from an overdose I never saw coming. The guilt still sits on my chest most mornings. So I pulled onto the shoulder, hit the flashers, and told myself I'd just roll the window down, ask if she needed me to call someone. That's all. I cracked the passenger window and leaned over. She didn't move at first, like she couldn't believe a truck had actually stopped. "You all right?" I called out. "You hurt?" She raised her head slowly. Her eyes caught the headlights and glowed for a second like an animal's. Not supernatural, just a weird angle and too much light, but it unnerved me. She stood up stiffly and limped toward the truck, clutching a small backpack. Up close, I saw scraped knees, red knuckles, and lips chapped bloody. She looked like she'd run a long way and lost the race. "I'm freezing," she said, voice rough. "Please, can you get me to the next town? I'll sit on the floor. I don't care. I can't be out here anymore." I noticed her sneakers were soaked through. Mud caked up her shins. No coat in weather that could kill you if you stayed still too long. Every instinct screamed at me to say no, that something was off. But there was this tremble in her voice that hooked right into the part of me that still hates myself for not saving my own kid. "Next exit's about 30 miles, I said. "I can get you there. No funny business. You sit right there, seatbelt on, hands where I can see 'em. Deal?" She nodded fast, eyes darting to the darkness behind her like something might drag her back into it. I unlocked the door. She climbed in, smelling like damp earth, sweat, and something metallic. I told myself it was just blood from those scrapes. It wasn't. We rolled back onto the highway, engine rumbling low. She stared straight ahead, gripping her backpack like it was a life raft. I tried to keep it casual. "Name?" I asked. "Mara," she said. Not Riley, but close enough to make me flinch inside. "You?" "Tom." I lied. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. She gave a thin smile. "You don't look like a Tom. You don't look like a Mara," I shot back. She laughed once, a dry, humorless sound. Fair. We sat in silence for a few miles. The dash clock ticked over to 2:47 a.m. Every so often, she'd glance at my hands on the wheel, then at my face, like she was studying me. "You married?" she finally asked. "No," I said. "Divorced. Long time. Kids?" My throat tightened. "Had a daughter," I said quietly. "She passed." The air in the cab got heavier, like the heater was pumping in sand. "Emma?" she said softly. The name slipped out of her mouth so naturally I almost didn't catch it. My grip tightened. "I didn't tell you her name," I said. She kept staring at the windshield, expression blank. "Sometimes I just know stuff," she whispered. Like it's been poured into my head, and there's no room for anything else." Her hand slid off the backpack and I saw bruises around her wrist. Ring-shaped, like someone had grabbed her hard. "Guy I was with didn't like when I talked about it," she added. "Said I was making things up. Said I was crazy." "Was he the one that left you out there?" I asked. She smiled then, slow and cold. "No, he didn't leave me." She turned her head, met my eyes. "He's not going anywhere." The next few minutes felt like driving through wet cement. Traffic was non-existent, just the sound of my engine and her breathing. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't want to, but the question bloomed in my chest anyway. "What's in the bag, Mara?" I finally asked. She tilted it toward me, unzipped it halfway, then stopped. "You picked me up," she said. "You wanted to feel like a savior, a good guy, but good guys don't stay good if they know everything. Sometimes you gotta choose not to look." My stomach turned. "Did you hurt him?" I asked, voice low. She shrugged. "He hurt me first, for months, years maybe. Hard to tell. You lose track in motel rooms and backseats, but he didn't believe I could ever really leave." Her fingers tightened on the zipper. I believed him, until tonight. I felt the temperature in the cab drop, though the heater was still on. "You kill him?" I whispered. She smiled that same dead smile. "Does it matter now? You weren't there when I needed help before. You weren't there when your Emma needed you, either." My blood ran cold. "How do you know her name?" I snapped. "How do you know anything about me?" She leaned back, eyes shining in the dash glow. Not quite human, not quite anything. "I just pick up what people leave behind," she said. "You left behind a lot." Up ahead, a green sign announced an exit with a gas station and diner. "You're getting out there," I said, more command than offer. She nodded slowly. "I know. I always do. And you're going to let me. You're going to tell yourself you did the right thing. That you helped." She zipped the bag fully, the sound like a knife being sheathed. "But you'll always wonder." I pulled into the lone gas station lot, lights buzzing bright against the darkness. She opened the door without another word, backpack slung over one shoulder. Before she jumped down, she looked back. "He's in a room off Route 12, she said. "If the cops hurry, they might still find him breathing, but you won't call. Because if he lives, someone might come talk to you. And you don't want anyone digging around your ghosts. Tom, who isn't Tom." Then she was gone, walking toward the darkness behind the station instead of the front door. I sat there 10 minutes, hands shaking on the wheel, rehearsing 911 calls in my head and never making them. I pulled back onto I-90 and drove until sunrise, her words replaying over and over. I never saw her again. But sometimes, late at night on some empty stretch of highway, I see a girl in the ditch in my headlights, and my foot hovers over the brake. If there's anything I took from that night, it's this. The road doesn't just carry freight. It carries the things people think they've left behind. The guilt, the secrets, the damage. They ride shotgun, whether you want them to or not. Stopping for someone can save a life, but it can also confront you with the parts of yourself you've spent years trying to outrun. You can't fix every broken person you meet, and you sure as hell can't fix the past. But you do have one job. When you see someone drowning, at least try to throw the rope and be honest about whether you really did everything you could. The monsters on the highway aren't always hitchhikers or killers. Sometimes they're the choices you didn't make, staring back at you from the rearview mirror. I was 25 when this happened, and I still can't check into a motel alone without scanning every corner of the parking lot. My dad was turning 60, and my family was throwing him a surprise party back in Tennessee. I was living in Colorado then, broke, and trying to climb out of a mess of student debt and a failed startup. Flights were too expensive, so I told myself I'd make it a cheap adventure and drive the whole way over 3 days. No hotels if I could help it, just motels and maybe sleeping in the car if I had to. I'd done solo trips before, but always in familiar states, close to people I knew. This time I'd be crossing big stretches of land where I didn't know a soul. At the time, that sounded kind of poetic. Looking back, it just meant, if anything went wrong, it would take a long time for anyone to even realize I was missing. The first day went smooth enough. Long, boring, but smooth. By late evening, I rolled into a small town off the interstate, the kind with one strip of chain restaurants and a few worn motels. I chose the cheapest one that didn't look like the ceiling would cave in, paid cash, and got a key card. The hallway smelled like old smoke and cheap cleaner. I slept hard. The next morning, I opened my door with my suitcase in hand and almost walked smack into a man standing directly outside my room. He was mid-40s, wearing a faded red flannel, jeans, and a trucker hat, gray stubble, pale eyes with heavy bags under them. "Whoa, sorry," I said, stepping back. He didn't move right away, just looked at me up and down like he was trying to place me. Then he smiled, too slow, too wide. "Morning," he said. "Didn't mean to startle you." He stepped aside an inch. Not enough to really clear the doorway. As I squeezed past with my suitcase, I felt his eyes on me in a way that made my skin feel too tight. He didn't go into any room. He just stood in the hallway, watching, while I walked out to the parking lot. When I loaded the trunk and glanced back, he was at the end of the walkway, leaning on the railing, staring down at my car. I told myself he was just weird. There are weird people everywhere. But I still left faster than I'd planned. The second day was supposed to be the longest push, 10 hours to shave time off the last day. I stopped at a diner, got coffee, tried to shake off the uneasy feeling from the motel. A few hours into the drive, I pulled into a gas station in the middle of nowhere. Just 4 pumps, 1 flickering light, and a grimy little store. I filled my tank and went inside for another coffee. When I came back out, there was a deep red, older Corolla pulled in behind my car, almost close enough to bump it. No one was at the pump. The windshield had a dark tint strip across the top, and the rest of the glass caught the overhead light just right to make it impossible to see inside. I hesitated, then told myself again that I was being dramatic. People park weird. Whatever. I unplugged the pump, walked around the back of my car, and felt the hairs rise on my neck like someone inside that red car was staring holes into me. As soon as I pulled out of the lot, the Corolla rolled forward and followed. At first, it stayed a few cars back. Then the traffic thinned as the sky darkened, and for long stretches it was just me and that pair of headlights in my mirror, sitting at a careful, constant distance. By the time full dark settled in, I'd been driving almost 9 hours. That jittery, wired feeling gave way to a heavy, slow ache behind my eyes. Every time an oncoming car passed, their headlights felt like knives. I kept telling myself I'd stop at the next town, but the exits got farther apart and more empty. No services, no lights, just names of roads leading into blackness. The red car still hovered behind me, dropping back whenever I changed lanes, then drifting up again a few minutes later. I tried to convince myself I was making a pattern where there wasn't one. It's easy to get paranoid when you're tired. Eventually, a sign for a gas station appeared. One lonely icon under exit 214. No brand, no food, just gas. I took the exit, praying for a bright, busy station. Instead, I found a single-story building with barred windows and 4 pumps under a buzzing canopy. The convenience store lights were off. A handwritten closed sign was taped crookedly on the door. I almost left, but my tank was low, and I didn't want to gamble on the next town. I told myself I'd just top off and go. I got out, started the pump, and that's when I saw Reflected in the smeared glass of the store windows, a pair of headlights turning down the exit ramp. The red Corolla pulled into the lot faster than any car needed to at an empty, closed gas station. It didn't go to a pump. It drove directly next to my driver's side, close enough that if I opened my door, it would hit their passenger door. I yanked the nozzle out, jammed it back on the pump without even checking the total, and dove into my car, locking the doors in the same motion. The passenger door of the red car flew open, and a man stepped out, coming straight to my window with purposeful strides. It was the man from the motel, wearing the same faded flannel. He grabbed my door handle and pulled hard, then again, like he couldn't process that it was locked. Our eyes met for a second, and there was recognition on both sides. His mouth curled up into this huge, delighted grin that didn't look like something a normal person's face could make. I threw my car into reverse, backed out crooked, and sped around him, tires squealing. As I passed, he slapped his palm against my window and yelled something I couldn't hear over my own breathing. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing there next to the red car, still grinning, not chasing me. That meant there was someone else in the driver's seat. Someone who had quietly followed me for almost a full day, probably from the motel, probably longer. I drove the last 2 hours into the city with my hands shaking so badly I had to pull over 3 times just to breathe. I reported the incident to the state police the next morning, gave them every detail I could remember. His face, the car, the motel, the gas stations. They took it seriously, but they didn't find him or the car. Maybe they moved on to someone else's town. Maybe they're still driving those back highways, looking for another tired, broke woman trying to save a few bucks. What I learned is this: desperation is visible. Predators notice people who look like they're stretching money, stretching sleep, stretching common sense. I thought being low maintenance and tough meant I could handle anything. Now I understand that safety isn't a luxury, it's a boundary. Spend the extra on a safer place to sleep. Trust the feeling when someone looks at you wrong. If something or someone keeps showing up where you are, don't explain it away. Your worst-case scenario is sounding paranoid to a cop. Their worst-case scenario is exactly the story I almost didn't live to tell.